3 years ago, I handed my parents the keys to a house I'd bought for them with my life savings, and my mother's first words after thank you were, "It's smaller than I pictured." 2 years later, my husband moved out because I'd spent our emergency fund on their roof repair without telling him. 6 months after that, I got a text from my father. "Your mother says the dishwasher is old. Can you handle that?" Yesterday, I finally did what I should have done 3 years ago. I said no. And my mother called me selfish, ungrateful, and a disappointment to the family. I'm 43 years old, and I'm just now learning that buying someone a house doesn't buy their love, and that sometimes the most expensive gift you can give is the one that costs you yourself. My name is Sophia, I'm 43, and I need to start this story in the beginning because the house I bought my parents wasn't really about a house at all. It was about 40 years of trying to earn something I didn't realize was supposed to be freely given. My parents, Robert and Linda, are good people. I need to say that first. They're not villains. They didn't abuse me, didn't neglect me, didn't do anything that would make for a dramatic trauma story. They're just immigrants who worked hard, sacrificed everything, and built a life for their children from absolutely nothing. They came to the U.S. from Poland in 1978, 2 years before I was born. My father was 23, my mother was 21. They had $200 between them and dreams of the American opportunity they'd heard so much about. My father got a job at a factory. My mother cleaned houses. They lived in a one-bedroom apartment in a rough neighborhood and saved every penny they could. I was born in 1981, and according to family legend, my mother went into labor during her shift cleaning a dentist's office and finished the job before going to the hospital because they needed the money. This story was told often, always with pride, always with the unspoken message. This is what sacrifice looks like. This is what love looks like. My younger brother, Tom, came along 3 years later. By then, my parents had saved enough to move to a slightly better apartment, still one bedroom, but in a safer area. Tom and I shared the bedroom. My parents slept on a pull-out couch in the living room for 8 years. I grew up understanding that everything was a sacrifice. The food we ate, the clothes we wore, the fact that we had heat in the winter, all of it came at a cost, and we were reminded of that cost constantly, though never with malice. Just matter-of-fact statements. Your father worked overtime so you could have that jacket. I took an extra house this week so we could afford your field trip. There was never a question of whether these sacrifices were necessary or wanted. They simply were. And the implicit understanding was that someday, when we were successful, we would pay it back. I was a good student because being a good student was the only currency I had. I couldn't contribute financially, but I could make them proud. Straight A's, honor roll, academic scholarships. I built my entire identity around being the child who would make it all worth it. Tom was different. He was creative, artistic, struggled in traditional academics. He wanted to study music. My parents were horrified. "Music doesn't pay the bills," my father said. "You think we came to this country so you could play guitar?" Tom went to college for business because that's what our parents demanded, dropped out after 2 years, and has been bouncing between jobs ever since. He's 40 now, still figuring himself out, still the disappointment. I'm the success story. I got a degree in accounting, got my CPA, got a good job at a firm, worked my way up to senior accountant. I met my husband, David, when I was 28. We got married when I was 30. We bought a small house in the suburbs when I was 32. And through all of this, my parents were still renting, still living in a 2-bedroom apartment that had gotten shabbier over the years. Still working, my father at the same factory, my mother cleaning fewer houses now that her knees were giving out. Every time I visited them, I felt the weight of that pull-out couch, even though they'd long since gotten a real bed. I felt the weight of all those years they'd sacrificed for us, and I felt the unspoken expectation. You made it, now it's your turn to take care of us. When I was 35, my father had a health scare. A minor heart attack, thankfully not serious, but it scared all of us. He was 60. My mother was 58. They'd been talking about retirement, but they couldn't afford to stop working. That's when the idea started forming. The idea that would eventually become both my proudest moment and my biggest regret. David and I had been married for 7 years when I first brought up the idea of buying my parents a house. We were doing well financially. Both working, no kids, we'd decided early on that children weren't for us, a decision that had disappointed my parents but was ours to make. We had savings. We had equity in our own home. We were stable. "I want to buy them a house," I said one night over dinner. David looked up from his plate. "Like, help with a down payment?" "No, buy them a house. Outright, or mostly outright, so they can retire, so they don't have to work themselves to death." David was quiet for a moment. That's really generous. How much are we talking?" "I've been looking at houses in their price range. We could get them something nice for around $250,000. We have about $100,000 in savings. We could use that for a down payment, and I'd cover the mortgage." "We'd cover the mortgage," David corrected gently. "We're married, it's our money." "Right, we'd cover it, but I'd be the one paying it from my income. It wouldn't affect your finances." Even then, I was already creating mental separations. My money, his money. My responsibility, his sacrifice. "Sophia," David said carefully, "100,000 is all our savings. That's our emergency fund, our future, our security. And a mortgage payment on a $250,000 house is going to be around $1,500 a month, depending on interest rates. That's $18,000 a year. For how long?" "Until they die, I guess. But they're 60. That could be 20, 30 years. I said it so casually. Like committing to potentially $500,000 over 3 decades was just a nice gesture. David put down his fork. "I love that you want to help your parents, but this is massive. This affects our future. What if we want to buy a bigger house? What if one of us loses our job? What if we change our minds about kids?" "We won't change our minds about kids." "You don't know that. We're only 35. Things change." "My parents sacrificed everything for me. This is the least I can do." "Is it the least? Because it sounds like the most, the absolute most." We fought about it for months. Not screaming fights, but tense, circular conversations where I'd bring up all the reasons we should do this, and he'd bring up all the risks. The turning point came when my mother fell and broke her wrist. She was cleaning a house, slipped on a wet floor, and fractured her wrist badly enough that she needed surgery. She couldn't work for 3 months. My father tried to pick up extra shifts, but he was 62 now, tired, still recovering from the heart attack. I sent them money for rent, for groceries, for medical bills. Over those 3 months, I sent them nearly $10,000 from our savings account. David didn't say anything, but I could see it in his face. The worry, the resignation, the understanding that I was going to do this with or without his blessing. "If we do this," he said finally, "we need rules, clear boundaries. We buy them a house, we cover the mortgage, but that's it. No paying for repairs, no paying for utilities, no endless financial requests. The house is the help. Agree." I agreed. I meant it when I agreed. I really thought I could maintain those boundaries. I was so naive. It took me 6 months to make it happen. I found a perfect house in a neighborhood my parents had always loved. A quiet street with actual trees, a small ranch with 3 bedrooms, a little yard. It needed some cosmetic work but was structurally sound. The asking price was $230,000. I offered $220, got it for $225. Used $90,000 from our savings as a down payment. The mortgage was $1,400 a month. I didn't tell my parents what I was doing. I wanted it to be a surprise. Their 45th wedding anniversary was in September. I planned a small party, just family, a few of their friends. At the end of the night, I handed my father an envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "Open it." Inside was a key and a card with an address. My mother looked confused. My father stared at the key. "It's yours," I said. "The house at that address, I bought it for you. Happy anniversary." The silence lasted maybe 3 seconds, but felt like an hour. Then my mother burst into tears, not delicate crying, full sobbing. She grabbed me, hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, and kept saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you," in Polish. My father cried too, which I'd only seen once before in my life at his own father's funeral. He shook his head like he couldn't believe it, pulled me into a hug, and said, "I'm so proud of you. You did good. You did so good." Those words, "I'm proud of you." I'd waited 40 years to hear them without qualifications, without conditions. And in that moment, it felt worth it. Every penny, every sacrifice, every compromise with David, worth it. David stood in the corner, smiling tightly, clapping along with everyone else. But when I caught his eye, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Not anger, sadness. Like he was watching me make a terrible mistake and couldn't stop it. My parents moved in 3 weeks later. We helped them pack, hired movers, got them settled. The house needed painting, new carpet, some kitchen updates. I paid for all of it. Another $15,000 I didn't tell David about until the credit card bill came. That was our first real fight. "You said the house was the help," David said, holding the statement. "You said no more after the house." "It's not livable as is. I can't give them a house that needs work and then make them pay to fix it. They don't have that kind of money." "Neither do we. We just spent $90,000 on a down payment and $15,000 on renovations. That's $105,000 in 3 months. Our savings is gone. Gone. And we're on the hook for $1,400 a month for the next 30 years. "It's not 30 years. They won't live that long." The silence after I said that was heavy. "Listen to yourself," David said quietly. "You're literally banking on your parents dying to get out of this financial commitment." "That's not what I meant." "Isn't it? Because that's what this is. You've trapped us, trapped them. They can't sell this house because it's in your name. If they die, you're stuck with it. If we divorce, it's part of our assets. You've created a financial entanglement that affects everything." "Why are you talking about divorce?" "I'm not. I'm talking about reality. I'm talking about the fact that you made a massive financial decision that affects both of us, and you're continuing to make financial decisions without discussing them with me, and I don't know how much more of this I can take." I should have listened, should have heard the warning, should have created boundaries right then. Instead, I got defensive, accused him of being selfish, said he didn't understand because his parents were well off, because he'd never had to sacrifice, because he'd never had to take care of anyone but himself. All of which was unfair and untrue. He slept on the couch that night, first time in our marriage. It wouldn't be the last. The first year after I bought my parents the house, the requests started small. "The lawn mower broke. Can you help us get a new one? $300. The water pressure is low. We need a plumber. $400. The air conditioning isn't working right. $1,200 for a new unit." Each request came with gratitude, with acknowledgement that they hated to ask, with promises that this was the last time. And each time I said yes, because saying no felt like taking back the gift. Like saying, "I bought you this house, but you're on your own for everything else," after I'd promised to take care of them. David started tracking it. He made a spreadsheet. Over the first year, beyond the mortgage payment, I spent an additional $8,000 on house maintenance, repairs, and updates. "This has to stop," he said, showing me the numbers. "They're old. They can't afford these things. What am I supposed to do? Let them live without air conditioning?" They lived without air conditioning for 40 years before this. In an apartment, this is a house, it's different. It's different because you made it different. You created a situation where they're dependent on you for everything, and now you can't say no. He was right, but I couldn't hear it. The second year was worse. Not just maintenance, but lifestyle inflation. My parents had lived modestly their whole lives, but now they had a house, and the house needed things. "The furniture from the apartment looks terrible here. We need new living room furniture." $2,000. "The kitchen table is falling apart." $800. "We should landscape the front yard. It's looking shabby." $1,500. My mother would call, her voice anxious, explaining why each thing was necessary. And I couldn't distinguish between genuine needs and wants that had evolved from living in a nicer space. My father stopped working, officially retired at 64. My mother cut back to one house a week, more for something to do than for income. Their only income was Social Security, which barely covered their utilities and groceries. They were fully dependent on me, and I was drowning. David and I stopped having sex, stopped going on dates, stopped planning for the future because every conversation about the future came back to the same problem. We couldn't afford anything because I was supporting my parents. "I want to travel," David said one Sunday morning. "I'm 38 years old. We have good jobs, no kids, and I feel like we're broke. Because we are broke. Because every extra dollar goes to your parents. I can't abandon them." "No one's asking you to abandon them. I'm asking you to set boundaries, to say no sometimes, to let them figure out some things on their own. They can't afford. Then they need to downsize. Sell the house, move to a smaller place, live within their means. I bought them that house. I can't take it away." "You're not taking it away. You're releasing yourself from an obligation you can't sustain." But I couldn't do it, couldn't disappoint them, couldn't be the daughter who gave them a dream and then snatched it back. The breaking point came in year 3. It was February, cold and miserable. I was 42. David and I had barely spoken in weeks beyond logistics. My father called. "We have a problem. The roof is leaking. Bad. We had a guy come look at it and he says it needs to be replaced. The whole roof." "How much?" $12,000. We got 3 quotes, that's the cheapest. $12,000. We didn't have $12,000. We had maybe $4,000 in checking, and that was supposed to cover our own expenses for the month. "I'll figure it out," I heard myself say. I hung up and sat in my car in the work parking lot and cried. Not delicate tears. Ugly, gasping sobs that came from somewhere deep and desperate. I had no idea how to pay for a $12,000 roof. We were already carrying credit card debt from previous repairs. Our emergency fund was gone. We couldn't take out a home equity line because we were already stretched thin on our own mortgage. But I couldn't tell my parents that. Couldn't tell them I'd built this house of cards and it was collapsing. I called my brother. "Tom, I need your help." "What's going on?" I explained. The house, the expenses, the roof. "Jesus, Sophia, why did you take all this on yourself?" "Because someone had to. Because you couldn't." It came out harsher than I meant it. "That's not fair," Tom said quietly. "I never promised to buy them a house. You did that on your own. You don't get to be mad at me because your grand gesture backfired." He was right, but it still hurt. "Can you contribute? Anything?" "I'm barely making rent. I'm sorry, I can't." I put the roof on a credit card. $12,000 at 18% interest. Didn't tell David. He found out 3 weeks later when he checked our accounts. He didn't yell. He just looked at me with this expression I'll never forget. Exhausted, defeated, done. "I can't do this anymore," he said. "It's a roof. The house would be damaged without it." "It's not about the roof. It's about the fact that you charged $12,000 without telling me. It's about the fact that you prioritize your parents' comfort over our marriage. It's about the fact that I have told you, begged you, pleaded with you to set boundaries, and you won't. You can't. And I'm tired of being married to someone who's already married to their guilt." "That's not fair." "Isn't it? When's the last time we had a conversation that wasn't about your parents? When's the last time you chose me over them? When's the last time you thought about our future instead of their present?" I didn't have answers. "I love you," David said, "but I can't keep watching you set yourself on fire to keep them warm. I'm going to stay at Mark's for a while. We need space. I need space." He packed a bag and left. That was 4 months ago. He hasn't come back. Last month, my mother sent me a text. No preamble, no question mark. "The water heater broke. We need $3,000 by Friday for a new one." I stared at that text for 20 minutes. We need $3,000 by Friday. Not "can you help?" Not "is this possible?" Just a statement of fact, an expectation, an assumption that my resources were their resources. And something inside me finally broke. I called her. "Mom, I can't." "What do you mean you can't?" I mean, I can't give you $3,000. I don't have it. What do you mean you don't have it? You have a good job. I have a good job that barely covers my own bills because I'm paying $1,400 a month for your mortgage plus all your repairs and expenses. David left me. Did you know that? He moved out 4 months ago because I spent our emergency fund on your roof without telling him. Silence. I didn't know he left, she said quietly. Because I didn't tell you. Because I knew you'd blame me for not managing my marriage better. But the truth is, my marriage fell apart because I chose you over him every single time. I chose your comfort over our future. I chose your approval over my own stability, and I can't do it anymore. So, what are we supposed to do about the water heater? There it was, not I'm sorry about your marriage, not we didn't know it was this bad. Just, what are we supposed to do? You're supposed to figure it out, I said. You have Social Security, you have savings, I assume, you have equity in a house I bought you, you have options, but I am not one of them anymore. We sacrificed everything for you. I know, and I've spent the last 3 years trying to pay you back, but I'm 42 years old, Mom. My husband is gone, my savings is gone, my peace is gone, and I'm realizing that no amount of money I give you will ever be enough because you don't see it as a gift, you see it as what you're owed. That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time you thanked me without immediately asking for something else? When's the last time you asked how I was doing instead of telling me what you needed? When's the last time you treated me like a daughter instead of an ATM? You're being cruel. I'm being honest. And I should have been honest 3 years ago. I should have said I can't afford to buy you a house. I should have said I can't carry this financial burden. I should have said no. But I didn't, because I thought if I just gave you enough, did enough, sacrificed enough, you'd finally be proud of me. You'd finally see me as enough. We are proud of you. No, you're proud of what I can provide. There's a difference. She started crying. I'd heard my mother cry twice in my life, when I gave her the house keys and now. What do you want us to do? She asked. I want you to sell the house. What? Sell the house. It's in my name, but I'll sign it over to you. Sell it, take the equity, move somewhere more affordable, live within your means, and let me rebuild my life. You're taking back your gift. I'm releasing both of us from something that was never sustainable. I gave you something I couldn't afford because I thought it would make me enough. It didn't. It just made me broke and alone. We haven't spoken since that call. That was 3 weeks ago. David and I are in counseling, trying to figure out if there's anything left to save. My parents are looking at smaller condos. My father hasn't called. My mother sent one text. I never asked you to buy us a house. She's right, she didn't ask, but she also didn't say no, didn't say this is too much, didn't say we'll be okay. She took the gift and then turned it into an obligation. Or maybe I did. Maybe I'm the one who couldn't separate love from duty, generosity from servitude, giving from earning. I'm 43 years old, and I'm learning things I should have learned 20 years ago. I'm learning that you can't buy love, approval, or validation. I'm learning that generosity without boundaries isn't generosity, it's self-destruction. I'm learning that sacrifice is only noble when it's freely chosen, not compelled by guilt and expectation. I'm learning that my parents' sacrifices for me were real, but they were also their choice. They decided to immigrate, to work hard, to build a life. I didn't ask them to sacrifice. I was a child, and their sacrifices don't obligate me to sacrifice myself in return. I'm learning that being a good daughter doesn't mean being a martyr. That honoring your parents doesn't mean destroying yourself for their comfort. That love shouldn't cost everything you have. The house is up for sale. My parents are angry. My extended family thinks I'm heartless. My father's sister called me selfish. My mother's friends from church don't understand how I could take back such a beautiful gift. But here's what they don't see. I didn't take back a gift. I released myself from a burden I was never meant to carry. David and I are working on things. It's slow. He says he needs to trust that I won't default to the same patterns, that I've actually changed. I don't blame him for being cautious. I'm in therapy, working on the guilt that's been my constant companion for 40 years. Working on understanding that my worth isn't determined by how much I sacrifice. That being enough isn't about doing enough. My therapist asked me last week, If your parents never acknowledge what you did for them, if they never thank you, never understand, never change, can you still be okay? I didn't have an answer then. I think I'm starting to now. The answer is, I have to be. Because waiting for them to see, to understand, to appreciate differently, that's just another way of making my peace conditional on their approval. And I've spent too much of my life doing that already. I bought my parents a house. It nearly destroyed my marriage, my finances, and my sense of self. And I'm still trying to figure out if it was an act of love or an act of desperation to finally earn something I was never going to get. Maybe it was both. If you're struggling with the obligation to support your parents financially, if you're drowning in guilt about not doing enough, if you've sacrificed your own stability for their comfort, I see you. This is complicated. There's no easy answer. But I'll tell you what I wish someone had told me 3 years ago. Your parents' financial security is not your responsibility. Their comfort is not worth your destruction. And no amount of money you give them will heal the wounds that money can't touch. Set the boundaries now. Before you're 43, separated from your husband, and realizing you spent your entire adult life trying to pay back a debt that was never really owed. You don't owe your parents your future. You just don't. I wish I'd learned that sooner.